happy holidays and welcome back. My name is Sheldon McLeod. This is Thinking Out Loud. It's presented to you here on the SaltWire Network. And I, again, invite you to search out our brand new YouTube channel. It's something a little different for us. We've been trying to build that community as well to give you more opportunities, more places to find us in the work that my colleagues are doing. Some amazing stuff. Just do as they do, click, like, subscribe, all that stuff. But I really wanted to take a few seconds to say we're getting ready for the holidays. I've been talking a lot this week about inflation, and it's kind of a double whammy in a lot of ways. It's going to impact our day-to-day spending, as we know, food and groceries and rent. And then for the charitable sector, a lot of people who love to give this time of the year are finding it's a little difficult to dig down deeper into their pockets after they paid the grocery bill, the fuel bill, and their rent. And I thought this was a really telling story that showed up at saltwire.com. Rosemary Godin said, "Can any of us afford Christmas this year?" And it really does dig into some important things about, Christmas gifts, Christmas spending. But what was really amazing to me is that, as happenstance would happen, it just was a news release that showed up in my inbox, and it was from Dalhousie University offering up a specialist, a senior instructor at the Rowe School of Business. Samantha Taylor is her name, and it's talking about inflation and what we can do so that perhaps it's a little less painful. And Samantha joins us now. And a happy holiday, Sam. How are you?
Happy holidays, Sheldon. I'm well, thank you, and thanks for having me on. How are you doing?
I'm getting through it, and I'm putting on a sweater because, as dads say, if you're cold, put on a sweater. Don't turn the heat up. I think we're all struggling, no matter where you are in the economic spectrum these days, to make sense of it all. I mean, we haven't seen interest rates this high in years. We haven't seen inflation this high in 40 years. So what is the focal? How do you kind of focus in on making sure that you don't look at your bills in January and then try to figure out how you're going to keep going into 2023?
So such an important topic, because I think after the last few years, we are ready and we are able to, physically get together in many instances, and we want to. And I think that that's important, and we should. So while, yes, I am an accountant, and yes, accountants are notorious for telling you to budget, I am not going to disappoint you. I will start off by saying, let's assess the situation that you are in, both what you want to do and also what resources you have to do that with. When I say resources, I mean what monetary resources do you have? Also, what time, what energy, like what do you want to do to devote to the holidays, and what is your kind of ideal or a good scenario of the holidays? What does it look like for you? And start getting excited. So start thinking about what total funds, time and energy you have. And then also, when looking at the big buckets, so decorations, gifts, food, and events, and start kind of thinking, okay, where would you like to allocate those resources? So that's kind of the high level strategy thing, because I think what happens is oftentimes we get, into the spirit and we get excited, which is awesome, and we should. But, if you have a little bit of forethought and planning and rein in that excitement a little bit and come up with a plan, you can ensure that you wake up in January from the post-holiday hangover and live with less regret. Because guess what? The holidays are going to happen next year, and the last thing you want to do is mortgage your future year based off of this year's fun. So really, coming at it with a plan.
One of the things that our family has noticed as the nieces and the nephews get older and start having families of their own, we start to see that whole, expense, and it's a horrible way to look at it, but you see there are more and more people to buy for, and we decided now's the time to start doing a name exchange. So instead of buying for everyone, it was a way to help it. It's a little less expensive, a little more affordable. And instead of, 10, 15 little gifts, you can kind of focus on somebody, give them something they like. I'm sure there are all kinds of examples people have for that. Is that at the core of what it is that we're kind of talking about here?
Sure. So gifts are one of them, and finding gift exchanges. So if we want to talk tactics, absolutely. So if you look at decorations, assess what do you have already decorations and what do you have in surplus. Instead of throwing it out, maybe talk to your friends, talk to other families. Say if you want to do a decoration swap, decoration exchange, maybe you top up with lower cost items from the dollar store, or you look for sales. So once you have kind of decorations and you're good with decorations, you can start looking to the food and the celebrations as well as the gifts. And yeah, absolutely. When talking about gifts, write down everybody that you would like to give gifts to, or that you think might be giving you gifts, and see what funds you have to allocate to that, and then think strategically. And so with the budgeting, I also say the communication, and that's exactly what you touched upon. There's recent research out here that says that 3/4 of Canadians are finding it more difficult than ever to meet their basic needs. So if you open up that conversation with your friends, with your family, you can start off by saying, listen, Christmas is going to look a little bit different this year than what I had hoped it to look for. You can talk about the fact that the economy is tightening and that the outlook for 2023 is looking very similar. You can talk about the increased forecast in food prices for 2023, 5 to 7% across the board. You can talk about, like you mentioned, the rate hikes, or you can just personally say, listen, we're concerned, or we just don't have as much. So however you want to kind of bring it up, just know that if there's 4 of you talking about this, 3 at least, about chances are, statistics say 3 of the 4 of you are really happy that this conversation is happening. So I love that. I love that gift exchange, that, the name in the hat. I love it if you want to put in some twists, like steals. So maybe it's, everybody brings a gift and you draw names out of the hat and you get to open a present, and you can either open a new one or, quote, steal one, and you can kind of see what gets stolen. I was actually talking with some of my colleagues earlier today in the School of Information Management, where half of the master's students there are training to be librarians. And so Janine McGregor, she forwarded me a list of wonderful things, free gifts that the Halifax Public Library is offering. And when I say gifts, I mean that, one of them are a bunch of craft ideas, as well as links to events and crafts at the Halifax Public Library. And another one is kind of a play on what you said. If you really, sometimes there's people that we want to spend more on, and sometimes there's people that we want to still acknowledge the holidays, but perhaps there's not as much of a budget left. And so communicate with them and perhaps do a book exchange. And it doesn't have to be a book that you buy them. It can be a book that you love. Go to the library, wrap it up. They'll do the same. You can exchange it, read it, and then talk about it and share those memories, which, Sheldon, I really want to get to. Research says that we receive more joy from, experiencing items and sharing moments than we do with, purchasing things. I'm looking around, whether it's, just things, right? So we get more joy out of experiences. So what can we do to cultivate those experiences? And what can we do to really ensure that the cost remains minimal?
I think there are probably more than just myself who has, somewhere locked away a little certificate that the kid made to say, hey, Dad, or, those types of gifts where it's an experience, or perhaps, I gotta love the fact that my son said on Father's Day, hey, let's go see Maverick, Top Gun. That was a gift because it was an experience. And I think that's what you're getting at, is that it doesn't necessarily have to be a tangible, physical. I mean, it could be a card. It could be something just to open on Christmas Day, but to look forward to in 2023 that gives you perhaps less anxiety over the overall expenses.
Yeah. And so circling back to the beginning, it's like when you assess your resources, really looking at time, money, and energy, and figuring out how you utilize those resources to get the biggest bang for your buck and align them with your values. And then, find out a tactic that excites you. And I love that you pointed out to the coupon and certificate, because that is something that is so, so special.
And we're talking, if we want to talk though about finances before we move away from this overall conversation, credit card debt is something that I suspect we're going to see a lot of people very anxious about in the new year, because it's so easy to just, I'll pay for it later. I'll enjoy it now, or I'll give that gift of joy now and I'll pay it off later. And with the overall rise in interest rates, I'm sure the credit card rates are going to start going up. Never mind the fact that retailers in this country now have been given the ability to charge through, so that you will have an additional charge. Not only will you be paying for the benefit of using that card and carrying the interest charges, and I'm wondering how, someone in your position would help folks manage that kind of debt moving forward.
Yeah. So really, really great point, Sheldon. I would say that as of October 31st, and just to frame it in case your viewers aren't aware, as of October 31st of this year, Visa and MasterCard, so not American Express. So if you have an American Express, maybe that's the one to tap. Although I don't want to promote credit card use. Anyways, going back, the ability to charge through. So what that means is that retailers can now add 2.4% from credit card fees directly to your bill. Now, there's some rules around this. They have to clearly display this at the front of their store. It has to be clearly itemized on your receipt. And not all retailers have said that they're going to pass on this fee. So it's certainly something to watch out for. So maybe that's the very first thing that you do is you walk into a store and you assess, okay, are they going to have this 2.4% charge through? And, or really, prevention is the best medicine, meaning if you're paying with cash or you're paying with debit, then you don't have to worry about these fees. But if you are planning on putting something on your credit card, ideally with the intention of, paying it off right away, really being mindful that you are not paying that extra 2.4%, up to 2.4% for the MasterCard or the Visa fees. Right. So now, anytime, listen, and I recognize that I'm sitting here literally in my professor office, and I will promise you that not only do I study and research accounting and accounting principles, I'm more excited about the education piece and how do we look at the behavioral aspect. And that's really where a lot of my research goes. And I say this as somebody who at the age of 23 was, insignificant amount of consumer debt, between car and credit card. And the major thing is when you find yourself in a position, start thinking, okay, make that mindset and then figure out what is the damage. So you open up every single bill, you put it all in a spreadsheet or on a piece of paper or however, and you look at it. So at some point, you are like, if you want to solve a problem, you have to face the problem. So right now during the holidays, maybe it's not the time in which, if you do already have consumer debt, that you want to face the problem. And you know what? We're recording this, before Christmas. I'm not saying that in the next 2 to 3 weeks, now's time to, put your whole, your stick in the ground and to make a claim. But what you can do is kind of plug the artery and not do any more damage. And then sometime in January, get all the bills out, figure out what you have, and then start making a plan. And maybe the plan is to not get any more in debt. And maybe the plan then looks forward. And, there's different methods that you can Google. There's the debt snowball. There's the debt avalanche. So do you pay the biggest one first, the smallest one first? But really the whole thing is just figuring out what's in front of you. And for me, that was my aha moment and my thing saying, okay, now I'm ready to invite some of the tactics. So, it recently became a higher number. It went up to $1.82 for household debt. That's consumer and mortgage for every dollar disposable income that Canadians have. This is compared to about $1.32 of the same metric in the US. So that is before the half point interest increase announced by the feds. By our government this week. So what we're going to likely see is a decrease in disposable income and a further increase to that debt to consumable disposable income. So I want to leave this on a very optimistic note, although I understand that we're not quite there yet. It's going to be tough for a lot of people. So saying things like, Christmas is going to look different, or I really, I want to do X and Y, but, here's what it's going to look like instead. I think acknowledging that and having those conversations to really ensure that we're minimizing the hangover is a really good place to start, because the likelihood is it's going to likely be a little bit tougher than it is better. The other thing, though, I think what we need to really remember, here's the optimism, is that spending money doesn't equate to happiness. It can absolutely relieve a lot of stress, not having to think about certain things, but showing people we love them and showing people we care about them can be done in a number of different ways, including, picking up the phone and telling somebody, hey, I was thinking about you today, or, hey, I remember that time we watched this movie, and really building those memories, and also, going back to previous memories.
Well, it is going to be a different kind of Christmas for some. I'm hoping that in the new year we'll reconnect and we can talk a little bit about these debt strategies. And we have obviously a lot to think about. And giving experiences, there's a Harvard University professor who studied happiness and the relationship between it and success. And happiness doesn't bring success doesn't bring happiness as much as happiness can bring success. So look for the happiness first. It doesn't have to cost you money. Do a little bit of the extra legwork and make something for someone, or just give them your time. And I think that's an excellent way to look at it. And Sam, I hope that for you, this holiday turns out to be exactly what you're hoping for, and that in the new year, you don't have to worry so much about the budget.
Thank you. Sheldon, may I just add one more thing?
Absolutely.
So when I was in university and when I was, serving, so waitressing and, struggling, one of my friends worked at a grocery store, and she bought baskets from the dollar store, and then she got groceries. I think she had like 10% off. And on Christmas, there's a little basket with like little fruits and I think like some breadsticks or something that she tied ribbons upon. And I think she said that she spent, I don't even want to say a number because it's going to be more this year, as we know with food inflation, but it was the most thoughtful thing in the world. So, it doesn't have to spend, like, you don't have to spend money. Like, we're here 15 years later, and I can still think about that as something that was just so thoughtful and so meaningful, and something that, these things, right? We make memories, we can give gifts, we can, show thoughts, and the amount that we give or spend or sacrifice doesn't equate to the amount of love or care or attention that we're giving. So I look forward to chatting again in the new year and getting some strategies on, how to mobilize and really, head into 2023 pretty strong. So thank you so much for having me on, and happy holidays.
Happy holidays. She is the senior instructor in the Rowe School of Business, and we've reached her, and you can also find her at her podcast, the Sam Taylor podcast. So maybe you can invite me for a chat sometime on that.
Absolutely. Love to have you on.
All right. Sam Taylor, all the best to you, and be well. Take care.